In the book Titanic, the ship that never sank, it discusses one of the most talked about and believed conspiracy theories about the Titanic, a book that is there to bring the truth about the sinking of this great ship. That the ship that holds the infamous name is not on the bottom of the Atlantic. Let me give you the rundown. RMS Olympic was travelling along the Solent when suddenly the warship HMS Hawke was pulled in and collided with the Olympic. The blame was put on the Olympic, and so the White Star Line had to pay for the entire repair costs with no insurance money to help them. Investigations brought up a troubling discovery that Olympic was badly crippled and would bring a large financial loss to White Star Line. It wasn't until then that they looked at their newer and identical ship they just completed, the Titanic. A plan was brought up to swap these two ships and claim that Olympic was now the Titanic and vice versa. Furthermore, a plan was to sink the Olympic and deem Titanic to recover insurance money so the White Star Line doesn't take any financial loss. And the plan was agreed upon. Olympic, now Titanic, sailed what would be Titanic's maiden voyage and was purposely sunk by an iceberg in the Atlantic Ocean, with Olympic sinking to the bottom instead of Titanic, and allow Titanic, now deemed as Olympic, to sail along and continue bringing revenue to the White Star Line. Looking at this, you don't fully go against it. It sounds reasonable and can be understood. The issue is when you look deeper into the main points presented by this theory. These are the main points I will go through, but I will give a quick bit of information that I believe may be required. The Olympic was the oldest of the Olympic-class liners. She was launched on October 20th, 1910 and entered into service for her maiden voyage on June 14th, 1911. She was the largest ship in the world in service and was having a popular beginning to her career, aside from a few bumps. On the other side we have Titanic, which was launched on May 31st, 1911, a couple of weeks before Olympic's maiden voyage. Olympic even left Belfast for Liverpool to be registered on Titanic's launch day. All was going well for Olympic until she was sailing into Solent outside Portsmouth, which brings us to our first point, the Hawke collision. On September 20th, 1911, the warship HMS Hawke was travelling too close to Olympic, and she was pulled in by Olympic's large suction and drawn into her rear side, but not causing fatal damage. Both ships survived, with the Hawke requiring a new bow. A trial investigation was conducted which ended with Olympic getting the full blame even after White Star Line lost an appeal. Olympic wasn't given any insurance money to cover the damage, and therefore the White Star Line had to pay for all the repairs. So they returned Olympic back to Belfast and took some workers who were fitting out Titanic to get Olympic's repairs done as quickly as possible. Now the theory goes that Olympic was crippled and therefore was going to bring a loss to the White Star Line. So the White Star Line instructed the Harland Wolff workers to switch Olympic and Titanic and have Olympic, now named Titanic, go onto Titanic's maiden voyage and purposely sink her to receive the insurance money necessary to make a profit. This part of the theory relies on two things: this image and both Titanic and Olympic looking the same. But this is where the issue spans from, as the Hawke collision took place on September 20th, 1911. This photo that was always been used for the switch theorists was actually taken in February 1912. This is what the Titanic actually looked like at the time Olympic returned to Belfast for repairs. This image was taken on October 2nd, 1911. The theory states that all things that show Titanic and Olympic was switched to make people not suspect that they were switched, but from this, you are not going to finish that in a week like these conspiracy theorists claim. Olympic's repairs lasted around a month, and a lot of the workers for Titanic was shifted over to Olympic, so Titanic lay dormant waiting for Olympic to get finished, and once Olympic was finished, Titanic began receiving stuff again. But why are both Titanic and Olympic in Belfast in this image? During one of Olympic's voyages, she threw a propeller blade and needed a new one. To get her out quickly, they took one of the blades from Titanic and fitted it to the bossing on Olympic. This blade had already been stamped as 401, which was Titanic's yard number in Belfast, compared to Olympic's 400, which I'll bring up again later. But I want to quickly talk about the differences between both Titanic and Olympic. These are the two images I can find that are closest to being taken, Olympic in March 1912 and Titanic in April 1912. I'll point out the main differences that can be seen on the exterior. First, we can see that Titanic has the A-deck promenade enclosed, which was done in mid to late March 1912. Titanic had uneven windows on B-deck, which was changed in September to November in 1912, and can be seen in this image where they are gutting the area for changes. This is where they added more cabins, and in the midship adding millionaire suites and new deluxe suites, and further aft adding the famed Café Parisien, with the port side of Titanic having the same done, except on the after end of the midship she had the second class restaurant extended out to the port side. This was to remove the enclosed promenade that wasn't being used on Olympic that much. Titanic also had her bridge wings extended to allow the captain or the officers better views of the rear of Titanic. This was later changed on Olympic in 1913, however. Some of these changes can be seen in the image in February 1912 on Titanic, which means for the theory to still work, the changes done to Titanic would need to be altered and need to be added to Olympic, something that would take a long time to do, longer than the time they were both in Belfast together. Now the other point is that the Olympic, now Titanic, was sunk on purpose to receive insurance money. I'll quickly go through the sinking, because firstly I have to say that if the ship was purposely sunk, then it requires you to silence all the 2,208 people that were on board from speaking the truth, which is just not possible. Even with that, many of the people who were on board weren't actually supposed to be on Titanic, as there was a coal strike in April, meaning many ships couldn't receive enough coal to sail across the Atlantic. So ships under the IMM, or the International Mercantile Marine, were asked to give their coal to Titanic alongside with their passengers, as she was the only ship that can hold everyone. So even if you were able to convince those who originally bought tickets to a ship that was being set up to sink, those who joined late, it just isn't possible to get them to agree. Following this, the ship was successfully sunk, with the loss of 1,496 people. But who cares? White Star Line profited from it, and that's all that matters. But this brings me to my next point. Did the White Star Line actually profit from the Titanic sinking? Well, the short answer is no, they definitely did not. From the start, Titanic was underinsured by £2.5 million, so the White Star Line would have got less money from sinking Titanic than they would have if they sank Olympic. But surely getting money back would be a good thing for them. Well, not exactly, as many of the survivors claimed lost property and loss of life claims. Not all, but quite a lot. White Star Line gave, I believe, $5,500 to everyone who claimed a loss of life claim to each relative. If that was to go to all 1,496 people who sadly died during the disaster, then White Star Line would have owed $8,228,000. But luckily for White Star Line, not everyone made a claim. But with the loss of property claims of the stuff from like cargo holds to the survivors' cabins, that stacked up. With the most expensive claim being a painting done by Mary Joseph Blondell by Bronstom Steffensen and filed for $100,000. In total, White Star Line came to a loss of $9,420,000. With insurance coverage, that made it $6 million, with cargo coverage being 95% to make the cargo hold a total cost of $400,000, and personal effects were covered at 60%, being $600,000. So in total, White Star Line lost up to $5 million in the course of the Titanic sinking. White Star Line made a serious loss on Titanic and only receiving 35% of what they should have got. So the claim that White Star Line profited from the sinking is just massively false. Now this brings me to the final point. that Olympic is actually the wreck we see on the bottom of the ocean. And I want to go through a little characteristics we've noticed on the wreck. Mainly because we've also seen the nameplates on Titanic, and a lot of people get misinterpreted with the name of it being a nameplate. It's not an actual plate that's riveted or bolted onto the ship. It's actually, for Titanic Olympic, it's engraved into the steel. So every single piece of wording on Titanic, whether that being Titanic on the front, on both sides, or Titanic and Liverpool at the back, they're both engraved into the steel. And this was the same with Olympic. So if you were to switch these ships, the entire plating would need to be changed and shifted between the ships, which would take a very long time. Furthermore, every single characteristic we've seen at the wreck has a resemblance to Titanic. It has Titanic's enclosed promenade on A deck, it has Titanic's irregular patterns on B deck. We've gone into the Millionaire Suite in 2001 and 2005. We've gone into, amazingly in 2005, they reached the Turkish bath, which is one crucial part of the ship. Because on Titanic Olympic it was completely different, and the layout of Olympic Turkish bath never changed for her entire career. However, on Titanic it was completely different, but as seen on the wreck, it has the same layout as seen on Titanic. But one thing that switch theorists cling onto is the 401 stamped on the propeller blade. The one that was given to Olympic in February 1912 was a blade from Titanic, and it already has 401 stamped. However, this is where it gets quite funny, because the propeller blade that is seen with a 401 on it, that is commonly claimed by these switch theorists, is actually from the other side of the ship, because Olympic received a portside blade while the photographed one seen is on the starboard side. Every single characteristic you would think with Titanic is seen at the wreck site. If that be from the way that the hull looks, the interior, everything that was added, the differences of the bow. The wheelhouse on it is narrower and has a flat front, whilst Olympic had a curved front and was as wide as the bridge itself. But this was changed on Olympic in 1913. Now, I will end this by saying that the theory has gotten rather widespread, likely because it challenges the norm, and many people do have the desire to be different when it comes to Titanic. You see that with many theories on Titanic, and it makes them feel special because of it. But I'm sorry, there is documented evidence that states that they are completely wrong. But I hope this video either clears up any confusion or even allows people who have thought Olympic and Titanic were switched and can be open-minded to the facts. I haven't included every piece of information that can disprove it, but I believe there's definitely enough to prove that this theory is inaccurate and should just be left alone for good.